This is the story of an edible chain letter, a recipe that has been quietly passing from hand to hand across America for over 160 years. And it all starts with a bag of mush someone hands you along with a set of mysterious instructions. Amish friendship bread. A coworker leaves a Ziploc bag of something warm and yeasty on a desk with a photocopied sheet of instructions. A neighbor rings the doorbell, holds out a squishy bag and says, "Trust me." Some people take the bag, follow the steps, bake something extraordinary, and start the whole chain over again. Here's the thing though, this recipe has almost nothing to do with the Amish, and it's barely bread. But its story reaches back through pioneer trails, the bread lines of the Great Depression, decades of newspaper columns, and finally, the early days of the internet. And once you understand how to make it properly, you'll see exactly why it has outlasted all of them. Start with what it actually is. Amish friendship bread is a sweet, dense cinnamon sugar cake built on a fermented starter, and that starter is the key to everything. Think of it as a cousin to sourdough starter, but sweeter and far more forgiving. Traditional sourdough starter uses only flour and water, drawing on wild yeast pulled straight from the surrounding environment. This one uses milk, sugar, flour, and commercial yeast. And that combination produces a much sweeter fermentation, which is why the finished loaf tastes closer to pound cake or coffee cake than anything most people would call bread. The name is really just a holdover from an earlier era. So where did it actually come from? Anne Byrne, who spent years researching historical recipes for her book American Cake, traces the concept all the way back to the 1860s. Pioneer women carried fermented starters west with them, feeding the cultures along the trail and sharing portions with other women they encountered on the journey. Keeping a living culture alive and passing it on was both deeply practical and deeply communal. A way of saying, here, take something that grows. The tradition carried forward through the following decades, but it found real cultural weight during the Great Depression of the 1930s. During those years, friendship bread starter became part of a broader tradition of Depression-era resourceful baking, where sharing a living culture meant stretching scarce ingredients across multiple households at a time when nobody could afford to waste a cup of flour. Friendship bread belongs to a documented American tradition called chain letter recipes, where instructions and ingredients were mailed or handed off in sequence, a phenomenon food historians trace from the 1930s all the way through the email era. By the 1930s and 40s, these chain-style recipes were appearing in cookbooks and community pamphlets, formalizing what had always been an informal act of generosity. By the early 1980s, an offshoot tradition was flourishing in Germany under a different name entirely. Hermann sourdough starter, the German predecessor to Amish friendship bread popular across Europe, inspired a dedicated following, and enthusiasts Harleen Watland and Dawn Watland Johansson launched the Hermann Sourdough Herald newsletter to document it, which eventually produced a full cookbook in 1990. Then came the internet, and the recipe found a new kind of chain to travel along. It hit Usenet forums in 1990 and spread through email chains that perfectly mirrored the bread's own sharing mechanism. It was, quite literally, a viral recipe before anyone had a word for viral. But here is what almost nobody realizes when they trace this recipe back through history. The Amish connection, the one baked right into the name, was always thinner than people assumed. Elizabeth Koblenz, who wrote the column titled The Amish Cook from August of 1991 until her death in 2002, was an old order Amish grandmother from rural Indiana, who wrote by hand under kerosene lamplight and mailed her work to an 18-year-old college student named Kevin Williams, who distributed it to over 100 newspapers nationwide. Search her name alongside Lavina Eicher, her daughter, who continued the column, to find the most complete archive of authentic plain community recipes available in print. And Koblenz had a very plain opinion about friendship bread. True Amish friendship bread, she wrote, is just sourdough bread that is passed around to the sick and needy. No cinnamon sugar, no Ziploc bags, no 10-day cycle. Just simple sourdough shared with people who needed it. The sweet, cakey version most people know today was not something the Amish invented, and it was not something Koblenz recognized as her own tradition. So how do you make the recipe that actually survived and spread? Here is the entire process from the beginning. It starts with the starter. Dissolve 1 packet of active dry yeast in a 1/4 cup of warm water and let it stand for 10 minutes. In a 2-quart glass, plastic or ceramic container, whisk together 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of sugar, then slowly stir in 1 cup of milk and the dissolved yeast mixture. And here is a rule that cannot be skipped. Use non-metal utensils and containers at every stage. Metal can trigger chemical reactions that degrade the culture and spoil the starter before it has a chance to develop. Wooden spoons, glass bowls, plastic containers, those are the only tools you need. Now begins the 10-day cycle, and this is where people either fall in love with the process or abandon it entirely. Day 1, you make or receive the starter and let it sit loosely covered at room temperature. Days 2 through 5, you simply mash the bag, squeeze it, work the contents around, keep everything moving so the yeast stays active and distributed. Day 6, you feed it. Add 1 cup each of flour, sugar, and milk. Then mash until well combined. Days 7 through 9, back to mashing only. Day 10 is baking day, and the whole cycle comes together at once. Pour the starter into a non-metal bowl, add another cup each of flour, sugar, and milk, and mix well. Divide the batter into 1 cup portions in separate gallon Ziploc bags. Keep 1 for yourself to restart the cycle. Give 3 away to continue the chain, and use the remaining cup to bake. One critical detail: do not seal the bags airtight. Fermentation produces gases that need room to escape, and you want to see the bags puffing, the batter bubbling gently, and a mild yeasty smell rising when you open them, because those are the signs of a healthy, active culture. If pink, green, or gray streaks appear, or if anything smells sharp or chemical rather than yeasty and sweet, throw it out and start fresh. So why does a healthy starter sometimes go quiet and stop bubbling around day 3 or day 4? Most of the time the answer is temperature. The culture is most active between 70 and 80 degrees, and in a cool kitchen it can appear dormant even when the yeast is still alive. Move it somewhere warmer, give it another day, and watch what happens before assuming it has failed. For the bread itself, that 1 cup portion of starter gets combined with 3 eggs, 1/3 of a cup of oil, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, about the addition that divides bakers almost as much as the Amish connection itself. Adding instant pudding mix to quick breads is a well-known moisture technique in American home baking, and it works because the modified starches and emulsifiers in the mix tenderize the crumb in ways that flour alone cannot replicate. 1 box of vanilla instant pudding is the classic choice, though chocolate, butterscotch, and banana cream all work beautifully with the right mix in combinations. Pour the batter into 2 greased and sugar-dusted standard loaf pans, the 8.5 by 4.5 inch size, and bake at 325 to 350 degrees for 45 to 75 minutes, testing with a toothpick before pulling them out. The single most common mistake is overmixing once the flour goes in. Work the batter only until the ingredients are just combined, because developing the gluten past that point gives you a tough, dense loaf instead of the tender, cake-like crumb that makes this recipe worth passing on in the first place. The variations stretch further than most people expect. Darren G., novelist and founder of Friendship Bread Kitchen, the most comprehensive online authority on starter variations and adaptations, has documented over 250 ways to use a single cup of starter: orange cranberry with vanilla pudding and fresh orange zest, apple cinnamon with butterscotch pudding and chopped apples, banana walnut chocolate chip with coconut lemon poppy seed. For a lighter version, replace half the oil with unsweetened applesauce and use sugar-free pudding. And if the extra starter bags have nowhere to go, freeze them in airtight bags, where they will keep for up to a year. Thaw at room temperature when ready, and either bake immediately or restart the cycle. Chef Carla Hall once received a bag of starter from a friend, and not fully understanding the tradition, used every last bit of it in a single ambitious baking session. When she excitedly reported back, her friend stared. "You used it all up? You're supposed to use some and pass the rest on." That's why it's called friendship bread. Hall later joked that she had broken the chain and taken her love and bashed it like it was a one-night stand. Elizabeth Cobblins passed away on September 17, 2002, at 66 years old, collapsing during a book signing tour. Her daughter, Lavina Eicher, carried on the column she had started, writing it until 2014, when Gloria Yoder of Flat Rock, Illinois, took over. The bread endures. The column endures. Starters keep fermenting in kitchens across the country, passed from friend to stranger to neighbor, the same way pioneer women shared theirs over 160 years ago on trails heading west. It is a recipe that insists you cannot keep it to yourself, and maybe that has always been the whole point.